There is a perception by many in New York that we are less safe than we were a year or 2 years ago. Is that accurate, and how big is the problem in your estimation?
Well, all you have to do is look at the crime statistics compared to 1 year, 2 years ago. Shootings are up well over 100%. Homicides are up. Not only is it the statistics are up, but the city feels unsafe. There's no question about it that there is a perception that the city is unsafe, and that's what you have to fight along with the numbers. You know, the reason crime is up is a fairly simple one, but a lot of people don't want to see it. Crime is up because the police are not engaging with the public. Why are they not engaging with the public? Because many of them feel that they may lose their job for simply doing their job. You know, in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, municipalities, states, counties put in a whole host of regulations that restricted the police, greatly restricted the police. Certainly in New York City, you had things like the diaphragm law that prevented police officers from using any pressure on the diaphragm if you're making an arrest, which is just totally, unrealistic. So the cops have backed off, no question about it, and that's why crime is up. It's not because of the pandemic or anything else. So the question is, how do you get the police to re-engage? And I would say with some difficulty. All of the mayoral candidates are talking in some way, shape, or form of further restrictions on the police. Now, there's an awful lot of discretion in policing. You know, police can take action and they can't take action. It's pretty much up to them. So that's what you're seeing now, in my judgment. The police not taking the proactive measures that we took a few years ago that made New York the safest big city in America. And getting it back in that direction is going to be no easy task.
Ray, as we listen to some of the discussion about this, it sounds almost like a zero-sum game. You're either safer or you protect people from some abuses, and I'm sure you agree there have been some abuses by some police around the country. Is it a zero-sum game? Is there a way to have your cake and eat it too? That is to say, we really are going to have the police engaged, to use your term, but at the same time, we really are going to protect against some of those excesses.
Sure. And, there's a lot of reasonable regulations that have been put in to address those accesses. I think these so-called accesses are blown way out of proportion and not nearly as much as the public might think. But certainly there is a balance that has to be reached. But right now, that balance, at least in the eyes of police officers, is that they're being demonized all the time. I don't know if you saw what happened in Flint, Michigan yesterday, but a police officer in high noon was directing traffic in uniform in the street. A woman drove up to him in the car and shot at him. Yeah. He in turn shot the woman and killed her. No reason. He didn't know her. She didn't know him. So this is the manifestation of a lot of hatred that's been spewed and directed to police officers over the last let's say 14 months at least. And that's the result that you get, is less proactivity on the part of the police and higher crime.
Well, you just put your finger on one thing that a lot of people are concerned about. That's just how many people have guns. That's something you tried to address and did address to some degree when you were police commissioner. Is there a way to go after that? And by the way, should we go back to stop and frisk?
People don't understand the stop and frisk. It is a perfectly legitimate, constitutionally approved, the Supreme Court approved practice of stopping, questioning, and then patting down someone who may be armed. It was not done excessively in New York City. As a matter of fact, it amounted to less than one stop a week per patrol officer and less than one pat down every 2 weeks per patrol officer. But we can never get that story out. It is a legitimate function on the part of the police. It's a tool that should be every police officer's toolbox, but now it's not used virtually anywhere because the police officers are afraid of being accused of some sort of malfeasance or wrongdoing. But in terms of getting guns off the streets, is very, very difficult, particularly here in New York City, where they have eliminated the anti-crime, the plainclothes anti-crime units that were very successful in getting guns off the street. That unit no longer exists. So now the feeling is that everybody is carrying a gun, and there's a rationale for it. And I have to carry a gun because the other guys are carrying a gun. So, it's a circular issue, and it's no easy answer. We live in a country that has more guns than people. Last estimate is about 350 million guns in this country. So it's a problem. It's the problem that's not going to go away anytime soon. Now, there are certain measures that you can take. The iron pipeline coming up from the south, 95, US 95, ATF and the NYPD work together on doing those things. But still, there's an overwhelming number of guns in New York City and certainly throughout the country. And it's a real challenge for police officers. Every stop they make, you potentially are running into somebody with a gun.
Finally, just briefly here at the end, maybe the toughest question. Are you hopeful that we can get a mayor out of this that might address some of the issues you've raised?
Well, we're going to see. I personally think Mayor de Blasio was a disaster, and he went a long way to ruining the city. I think anybody would be better than Mayor de Blasio, but we're going to have to see. Talk is cheap. There's a lot of cheap talk during, when you're trying to gain an office. But I think the city council is a real problem for the next mayor. The city council is radical right now. Right. It's going to be even more so in the next term in January of 2022. Yeah. The Democratic Socialists of America have focused all of their attention on city council members. Yeah. So it's going to be a tough road to hoe for the next mayor.